Chapter 3 of Gone to Earth. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Gone to Earth by Mary Webb. Chapter 3. Undern Hall, with its many small-paned windows, faced the north sullenly. It was a place of which the influence and magic were not good. Even in May, when the lilacs frothed into purple, paved the lawn with shadows, steeped the air with scent, when soft leaves lipped each other consolingly, when blackbirds sang, fell in their effortless way from the green height to the green depth and sang again, still something that haunted the place set the heart fluttering. No place is its own, and that which is most stained with old tumults has the strongest fascination. So at Undern, whatever had happened there went on still. Someone who had been there was there still. The lawns under the trees were mournful with old pain, or with vanished joys more pathetic than pain in their fleeting mimicry of immortality. It was only at midsummer that the windows were coloured by dawn and sunset. Then they had a sanguinary aspect, staring into the delicate sky dramas like blind bloodshot eyes. Secretly, under the heavy rhododendron leaves and in the furtive sunlight beneath the yew trees, gnats danced. Their faint motions made the garden stiller. Their smallness made it oppressive. Their momentary life made it infinitely old. Then Undern Pool was full of leaf shadows like multitudinous lolling tongues, and the smell of the mud tainted the air, half sickly, half sweet. The clipped bushes and the twisted chimneys made inky shadows like steeples on the grass, and great trees of roses, beautiful in desolation, dripped with red and white and elbowed the guelder roses and the elders set with white patterns. Cherries fell in the orchard with the same rich monotony, the same fatality as drops of blood. They lay under the fungus-riven trees till the hens ate them, pecking gingerly and enjoyably at their lustrous beauty as the world does at a poet's heart. In the kitchen garden also the hens took their ease, banqueting sparely beneath the straggling black boughs of a red-currant grove. In the sandstone walls of this garden hornets built undisturbed, and the thyme and lavender borders had grown into forests and obliterated the path. The cattle drowsed in the meadows, birds in the heavy trees. The golden daylilies drooped like the daughters of pleasure. The very principle of life seemed to slumber. It was then, when the scent of elder blossom, decaying fruit, mud and hot yew brooded there, that the place attained one of its most individual moods, narcotic, aphrodisiac. In winter the yews and firs were like waving funeral plumes and mantled headless goddesses. Then the giant beeches would lash themselves to frenzy, and stooping would scourge the ice on Undern Pool and the cracked walls of the house, like beings drunken with the passion of cruelty. This was the second mood of Undern, brutality. Then those within were, it seemed, already in the grave, heavily covered with the prison of frost and snow, or shouted into silence by the wind. On a January night the house seemed to lie outside time and space. Slow, ominous movement began beyond the blind windows, and the inflexible softness of snow blurred on the vast background of night, buried summer ever deeper with invincible caressing threats. The front door was half glass, so that a wandering candle within could be seen from outside, and it looked inexpressibly forlorn, like a glowworm seeking escape from a chloroform box, or mankind looking for the way to heaven. Only 4 windows were ever lit, and of these 2 at a time. They were Jack Reddin's parlour, Andrew Vesson's kitchen, and their respective bedrooms. Reddin of Undern cared as little for the graciousness of life as he did for its pitiful rhapsodies, its purple-mantled tragedies. He had no time for such trivialities. Fox hunting, horse breeding, and kennel law were his vocation. He rode straight, lived hard, exercised such creative faculties as he had on his work, and found it very good. 3 times a year he stated in the Undern pew at Wolfbatch that he intended to continue leading a godly, righteous and sober life. At these times, with amber lights from the windows playing over his well-shaped head, his rather heavy face looked, as the Miss Clombers from Wolfbatch Hall said, so chivalrous, so uplifted. The Miss Clombers purred when they talked, like cats with a mouse. The younger still hunted, painfully compressing an overfed body into a riding habit of some forgotten cut, and riding with so grim a mouth and such a bloodthirsty expression that she might have had a blood feud with all foxes. Perhaps when she rode down the anxious red-brown streak, she thought she was riding down a cruel fate that had somehow left her life vacant of joy. Perhaps when the little creature was torn piecemeal, she imagined herself tearing so the frail, unconquerable powers of love and beauty. Anyway, she never missed a meet, and she and her sister never ceased their long, silent battle for Reddin, who remained as unconscious of them as if they were his aunts. He was, of course, beneath them, very much beneath them, hardly more than a farmer, but still a man. Reddin went on his dubious and discreditable way, and the woman Sally Haggard of the cottage in the hollow gained by reputation of a certain harsh beauty what the ladies Clomber would have given all their wealth for. The other inhabitant of Undern, Andrew, revolved in his own orbit and was entirely unknown to his master. He cut the yews, the peacocks and the clipped round trees and the ones like tables, twice a year. He was creating a swan. He had spent 20 years on it and hoped to complete it in a few more when the twigs that were to be the beak had grown sufficiently. It never occurred to him that the place was not his, that he might have to leave it. He had his spring work and his autumn work. In the winter he ordained various small indoor jobs for himself, and in the summer, in common with the rest of the place, he grew somnolent. He sat by the hacked and stained kitchen table, which he seldom scrubbed and on which he kept his knife, sawed bones and chopped meat, and slept the afternoons away in the ceaseless drone of flies. When Reddin called him, he rarely answered, and only deigned to go to him when he felt sure that his order was going to be reasonable. Everything he said was non-committal, every movement was expostulatory. Reddin never noticed. Vessons suited his needs, and he always had such meals as he liked. Vessons was a bachelor. Monasticism had found in a countryside teeming with sex one silent but rabid disciple. If Vessons ever felt the irony of his own presence in a breeding stable, he never said so. He went about his work with tight, disapproving lips, as if he thought that nature owed him a debt of gratitude for his tolerance of her ways. Ruminative and critical, he went to and fro in the darkly lovely domain with pig buckets or ash buckets or barrows full of manure. The lines of his face were always etched in dirt, and he always had a bit of rag tied round some cut or blister. He was a lonely soul, as he once said himself when unusually mellow at the Hunter's Arms. He was without mother, without father, without descent. He preferred it to the ties of family. He liked living with Reddin because they never spoke except of necessity, and because he was quite indifferent to Reddin's welfare and Reddin to his. But to Undern itself he was not indifferent. Ties deep as the tangled roots of the bindweed, strong as the great hawsers of the beeches that reached below the mud of Undern Pool, held him to it. the bond slave of a beauty he could not understand, a terror he could not express. When he trudged the muddy paths, setting taters or earthing up, when he scythed the lawn, looking with a rose in his hat weirder and more ridiculous than ever, and when he shook the apples down with a kind of sour humour, as if to say, "There, that's what you trees get by having apples," at all these times he seemed less an individual than a blind force. For though his personality was strong, that of the place was stronger. Half out of the soil, minded like the dormouse and the beetle, he was, by virtue of his unspoken passion, the protoplasm of a poet. End of chapter 3. Recording by Rachel Linton, Bristol, UK.